He bought a house for $500 and thought he was lucky. But under the bathtub, he found something that prompted the FBI to come immediately. The story begins with a routine renovation and ends with something he didn't expect. Subscribe and write in the comments where you are watching from. Elias Harrington never imagined that the idea of home could become an obsession, but over the years, it slowly turned into one. At 34, he had spent most of his life living in places that belonged to other people, rented rooms above garages, temporary trailers, small basement spaces with low ceilings and peeling paint, all of them filled with the constant reminder that he was only passing through. Stability had never been part of his life. His parents died in an accident when he was 12, and from that moment, he ricocheted from relative to relative, moving each time he finally grew used to the place. Later, when he began working as a mechanic, he lived in the back room of the repair shop because it was all he could afford. The room fit a single bed, a dresser someone had thrown away, and a small table that collapsed if you leaned on it. Sometimes late at night, when he was too tired to sleep, he watched videos about home renovation on his old laptop and imagined what his life would feel like if one day he had a place that was truly his. But houses were expensive, and his job didn't offer many opportunities for saving. Whatever he earned went to rent, food, and the occasional repair of his own aging truck. Banks denied him loans without hesitation. No strong credit history, no co-signer, no assets to secure anything. The idea of owning a home shifted from dream to impossibility so slowly, he didn't even notice the transition. He told himself he didn't need much. He told himself he preferred solitude. Yet every time he drove by houses on his way to work, small ones, big ones, broken ones, he felt a twist in his chest. That twist tightened the night he found the listing. He wasn't looking for anything serious, just scrolling through a cheap real estate website at 2 a.m, the kind of site that offered old sheds and half-collapsed farmhouses that nobody wanted. And then he saw it. House for sale, $500, quick deal, renovated bathroom. That was the entire description. No photos of the owner, no specifications, nothing but the address and the peculiar note. Keys inside. No meetings. He stared at the screen for a long time. The ad had been posted 11 minutes earlier, most likely a scam, or some kind of joke. But the address was real, and curiosity stabbed deeper than caution. Houses didn't cost $500. Even condemned ones didn't. The renovated bathroom line made even less sense. Why would someone renovate only one room? He copied the address into his phone. The listing vanished 15 minutes later, as if someone had removed it, but the address remained. 2 days later, on his day off, he drove to see the house in person. The road felt unusually empty as he turned off the main street and followed a narrow gravel path into a wooded area. No neighbors in sight. The trees grew thick and tall on both sides, forming a tunnel of fading autumn light. His truck bounced over potholes. He wondered, not for the first time, why he was doing this. Maybe he simply wanted to see the place before accepting he could never have it. Maybe he wanted to prove to himself that there was no such thing as a miracle. But when the house finally came into view, his breath caught in his throat. The place was far larger than the listing suggested. 2 floors, an attic window at the top, a wide porch with chipped paint, and tall, narrow windows that looked like they belonged to a Victorian estate. The siding had peeled, the roof sagged unevenly, and the front steps creaked when he walked up. But despite its tired look, the house felt full of quiet presence. Old, certainly. Abandoned, maybe. But not broken beyond repair. He pushed the front door. It swung open with a low groan. The interior greeted him with a strange mixture of age and recent disruption. Dust lay thick on some surfaces, while others had been wiped clean. Some rooms were empty. Others had the outline of furniture imprinted in the faded carpeting, as if something heavy had been removed only days ago. The smell was also wrong. Not just dust and stale air, but something sharper, chemical, mixed with the faint scent of metal. He paused in the hall, taking in the silence. Houses often had a presence, whether warm or cold, welcoming or distant. But this one felt alert, as if it had been watching the door and was now watching him. He moved from room to room slowly. The living room had exposed wiring hanging from the ceiling, yet the wires were neatly bundled with fresh electrical tape. One of the bedroom doors had brand new hinges installed, while the wood around them was rotting. Several windows were boarded from the inside, not the outside, and the boards were new. The place wasn't abandoned. It had been used recently. But for what? Each step deepened a creeping unease inside him, an unease that sharpened when he reached the bathroom. It didn't match anything else in the house. It didn't belong. Where the rest of the house looked tired, patched, altered by time, the bathroom was perfect. White tiles in a precise grid, grout lines so clean they looked drawn with a ruler, a glossy bathtub with no scratches, no water stains, no wear. The faucet shone like polished chrome. Even the mirror was spotless. He stepped inside slowly, feeling the abrupt temperature difference. The bathroom was warmer than the other rooms, and there was a smell, something sterile, like recently used cleaning agents mixed with tile adhesive. He crouched near the base of the bathtub and touched the tile. It was slightly warm. Warm tile, in an empty, unheated house. He stood up too quickly and had to steady himself. Something was wrong with this room. The bathtub stood slightly raised compared to the floor. Not much, just enough to notice. The pipes underneath were new, absolutely new. But he saw at once that one of them didn't connect anywhere. He followed the line with his eyes. It simply disappeared behind the tile. At night, in that house, the bathroom became a different place entirely. Elias tossed and turned in the small sleeping bag he had brought, listening to the distant groans of the old structure. Then, around midnight, he heard the first sound. A faint metallic click. Then another. A soft vibration in the floorboards. It came from the direction of the bathroom. He sat upright, heart pounding. The sounds didn't resemble pipes or settling wood. They were deliberate, mechanical. He forced himself to check. The bathroom was exactly as before. Clean. Still. Quiet. But when he placed his palm on the floor right beside the bathtub, he felt it. A pulse-like vibration, like something shifting below. He jerked his hand back. The vibration stopped instantly, as though reacting to him. The next morning, running on little sleep, he decided he had to inspect the bathtub closely. He crouched again and pressed gently against the porcelain edge. It moved. Not much, but enough to reveal a hairline gap between the bathtub and the tiled floor. The bathtub wasn't fixed in place. It was mounted on something that allowed it to pivot. His heartbeat drummed in his ears as he pressed harder. The bathtub lifted slowly on one side, rising like a hinged lid. Underneath wasn't a floor. There was a square metal panel, smooth and cold, with a barely visible integrated handle. He stared at it, frozen. This wasn't a renovation. It was a cover. He reached for the handle, breath shallow. But at that exact moment, he heard a soft shuffle behind him, somewhere in the hallway. Not loud. Not fast. Just the unmistakable sound of a foot dragging lightly across the floor as someone stepped back from the doorway. Someone had been watching him. He spun around, but the hallway was empty. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement. Only silence so deep it felt alive. He looked back at the lifted bathtub, at the metal door beneath it, and he realized this house had never been meant for him. Someone had used it. Someone had built something here. And someone had been close enough to watch him discover it. He let the bathtub fall shut and backed out of the room slowly, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on him as he left. Elias stood in the doorway of the bathroom for a long moment, staring at the smooth white surface of the bathtub as if it were the lid of a coffin he had accidentally opened. His heartbeat still hadn't returned to normal. Every instinct in him told him that whatever was under that tub, whatever mechanism allowed it to open like a vault, had nothing to do with home renovation. And whoever had stood outside the bathroom watching him, whoever had slipped away so silently, was not someone he wanted to meet. He backed into the hallway, listening, trying to catch any hint of movement in the house. But the air had fallen into an unnerving stillness. The silence pressed against him like a solid wall. The house no longer felt abandoned. It felt occupied. It felt aware. Elias swallowed hard and hurried out the front door, stepping into the crisp morning air with an urgency that bordered on panic. He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, his voice cracked. "I think I found something in the house I just bought. Something strange. There's a hidden door under the bathtub. It looks like someone built it recently, and I think someone else was inside the house." The dispatcher asked questions, her tone shifting from routine to alert, and instructed him to wait outside until officers arrived. Elias hung up and began pacing across the overgrown front yard, glancing back at the windows every few seconds. He half expected to see a shadow pass by, or a face appear behind the grimy glass. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes, far faster than he expected. Maybe they sensed the urgency in his voice. Maybe the call itself triggered some protocol. The officers stepped out cautiously, hands near their holsters. One of them, a tall woman named Officer Granger, approached him first. "You said you found a hidden space under the bathtub?" she asked. Elias nodded, feeling embarrassed by how absurd it sounded. "Yes. And the bathtub, it lifts, like it's on hinges." The officers exchanged looks. Officer Granger gestured for him to lead the way. He hesitated, then entered the house with them, each step feeling like an intrusion into something forbidden. The officers cleared the rooms with mechanical precision, checking closets, corners, behind doors. No one was inside. No footprints. No signs of forced entry. But the house somehow still felt lived in, as if the owner had simply stepped out for a moment and would return any second. They reached the bathroom last. "Stand back," Officer Granger said. Elias did. Both officers knelt beside the bathtub. Granger ran her fingers softly along the tile edge before gripping the porcelain and giving it a firm tug. The bathtub rose, just as it had for Elias, revealing the metal panel beneath. The officers stared at the concealed hatch in silence. "That's industrial," the second officer muttered. "Not home use. And it's new." "Call it in," Granger said. While the officer radioed for backup, she examined the hatch more closely. There was a faint trace of heat coming from the metal, as if something had recently been running beneath it. The edges were spotless, no dust, no grime, no spider webs. Whoever built it maintained it meticulously. "What's down there?" Elias asked. "That's what we're going to find out," she replied. When backup arrived, 2 more officers with equipment cases, they removed the bathtub entirely, setting it aside like a displaced tombstone. The hatch was now fully exposed, a square of brushed steel with an inset lock disguised beneath a false panel. It wasn't difficult to open. The officer with the tools slid a thin pick under the panel, revealing a simple latch. He twisted it, and the hatch popped upward with a soft pneumatic hiss, releasing a gust of cool, chemical-scented air from below. A rectangular opening yawned in the tiled floor, leading into a shaft lit by a faint glow. A metal ladder extended downward into darkness. "What kind of bathroom has this?" the officer whispered. Officer Granger clicked on her flashlight, and leaned over the opening. The beam illuminated smooth concrete walls, wiring conduits, and a distant floor perhaps 15 feet below. "This wasn't built by amateurs," she said. "We're going down." They descended one at a time. Elias remained above at first, gripping the edge of the opening, struggling between fear and the need to understand what he had purchased. The officers reached the bottom and called up to him. "It's safe," Granger said. "You can come down if you want." He hesitated. The idea of climbing into a hidden tunnel beneath his bathroom felt insane. But curiosity and dread pulled him forward. He made his way down the ladder, feeling the cold metal vibrate slightly under his hands. When his feet touched the concrete floor, he found himself standing in a narrow corridor, barely wider than his shoulders. The walls were smooth and gray, freshly poured. Lines of new electrical conduits ran neatly along one side, connecting to industrial lamps set into the ceiling. The corridor stretched both ways, but one direction dead-ended behind a sealed wall. The other extended toward darkness. Officer Granger led the way, her flashlight sweeping across the floor. The concrete was dusty, but there were footprints. Not many, just a few. Fresh, distinct, leading deeper into the tunnel. Elias felt a chill travel down his spine. Whoever had watched him from the hallway last night, whoever had slipped away as he lifted the bathtub, had likely come through this passage. The group moved forward slowly. As they advanced, the air grew colder, and the chemical smell intensified, mixed with something metallic and unfamiliar. The tunnel eventually opened into a larger room, and the officers fanned out, guns drawn, as their flashlights probed the darkness. The room was bigger than he expected, large enough to be a small underground bunker. The walls were lined with metal shelving units, each filled with boxes, tools, coils of cable, cans of food, bottled water. A large metal table sat at the center. On it were scattered papers, a laptop with the battery removed, and several walkie-talkies. But it was the far wall that stole the breath from all of them. A massive corkboard covered the entire surface, filled edge to edge with photographs. Dozens of faces, some smiling, some looking away, some appearing caught unaware. Many were labeled with dates. Some were cut from missing person posters. Red string connected certain photos, forming branching lines, web-like patterns, linking names and faces and locations. Elias approached slowly, transfixed. A chill crawled across his skin the moment he recognized what the board showed. This was no random collection. It was an investigation, a hunt, a map of people tracked over time. One officer stepped closer and examined a photograph pinned near the middle. "I know this woman," he said quietly. "She disappeared 3 years ago. Still an open case." Officer Granger's eyes narrowed. "This is bigger than anything we handle. We need to call the feds." They continued searching the room. More disturbing details surfaced. A half-eaten meal on a tray, still soft. A generator in the corner that was warm to the touch. A blanket draped over a folding cot. A steaming mug half full of tea. The bunker was not abandoned. It had simply been vacated a short time ago. As they explored further, an officer found another door, a narrow one disguised as a panel. Behind it was a secondary corridor, even longer and darker, stretching beyond the foundation of the house. Officer Granger decided they would not proceed without federal support. They sealed the area and guided Elias back up the ladder into the bathroom. He emerged into the house feeling like he had been underwater for hours. His lungs ached for clean air. His head swirled with disbelief. The officers told him not to return to the house under any circumstances. It was now a crime scene under police control. They took his statement in detail, asked him dozens of questions, then released him with instructions to stay in town in case investigators needed him. He drove to a cheap roadside motel and attempted to sleep. But his mind replayed the images from the underground room, the photographs, the strings. the patterns that suggested obsession. A predator's obsession. The feeling of being watched returned with suffocating intensity. Every creak of the motel walls made him sit up. Every passing car made him check the curtains. Around midnight, just as exhaustion was beginning to overpower fear, he heard a faint tap at the door. He froze. Another tap. Soft. Delicate. Almost polite. He gathered what courage he had left and approached the door. He didn't open it, just pressed his ear against the wood. Silence. He waited. Then he noticed something on the floor, pushed halfway under the doorframe. A single piece of paper, folded in half. He crouched and pulled it toward him with trembling fingers. There was no handwriting on the outside, no signature, no mark. He opened it. One sentence, printed in clean block letters, stared back at him. You should not have touched the bathtub. His blood turned cold. Someone had followed him. Someone knew exactly where he was. Elias didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was staring at the note in his hands, its letters sharp and dark in the dim motel light, and the next he was waking up to a soft knock at the door accompanied by voices outside. For an instant, panic flared in him. Had the man come back? Was he waiting on the other side of the door? But the voices were steady, authoritative, and unmistakably official. When he peeked through the narrow slit of the curtain, he saw two unmarked black SUVs parked outside the motel office and three men in dark jackets standing near his door. He stepped back, heart rising into his throat. The quiet knock came again. A moment later, a calm voice called out, "Mr. Harrington, this is the FBI. We need to speak with you." The FBI. He froze, staring at the door. The officers yesterday had mentioned calling federal authorities, but he didn't imagine they would come this quickly. He approached the door cautiously, unlocked it, and opened it just enough to see a badge held up for him. The agent, a man in his 40s with short dark hair and steady eyes, introduced himself as Special Agent Devereaux. The others waited behind him. "May we come in?" Devereaux asked. Elias stepped aside wordlessly. The agents entered the room with careful, trained movements, scanning the interior as if danger could lurk inside the small space. Devereaux noticed the note lying on the bed. He picked it up and studied it without a change in expression. "When did you receive this?" Devereaux asked. "About an hour after I left the house," Elias answered. "Someone pushed it under the door." The agent exchanged a brief glance with the others. It was not a casual glance. It was a silent acknowledgement of significance. He folded the note with precision and slipped it into a plastic evidence sleeve. "Mr. Harrington," Devereaux said, turning back to Elias, "we need you to come with us. You're not under arrest, but the situation is larger than what local police can handle. You're now a key witness in what may be an active federal investigation." The words seemed unreal. Elias blinked at him, then nodded. He barely felt his legs under him as he put on his shoes and followed the agents outside. The early morning was gray, the air damp and cold. He climbed into the back of the lead SUV, where another agent, a woman with braided hair and sharp, analytical eyes, introduced herself as Agent Lorne. The drive was quiet. Elias watched the trees and buildings rush by, unable to shake the sensation that every passing vehicle might be carrying the man who had been watching him. The man whose hidden world he had stumbled into. The man who knew where he slept. They arrived not at the local police station, but at a federal field office on the outskirts of town, a building of concrete, glass, and steel, its windows dark against the rising sun. Once inside, he was led through a series of hallways, past armed guards and secure doors, until they reached a briefing room. It was sterile and brightly lit, a stark contrast to the underground bunker beneath his bathroom. Devereaux gestured to a chair. "Please sit. We're going to walk you through what we know." Elias sat, hands clasped tightly, as several agents entered with files, photographs, and a large digital tablet. Agent Lorne dimmed the lights and turned on the screen at the front of the room. A map of the United States appeared, dotted with small red markers, dozens of them. Agent Devereaux stepped forward. "What you found in your house wasn't a one-off. It's part of a pattern. Over the past 7 years, we've identified at least 27 properties across the country that were quietly bought, infiltrated, or modified by an individual or a small organization we're calling the Watcher." "Watcher," Elias repeated quietly. Devereaux nodded. "We don't know his real name. We don't know his origin. But we know his habits. Each location he uses has a concealed entry point, often hidden beneath a renovation. In some cases, it's under a bed. In others, it's beneath kitchen flooring. But in your case," he pointed to the screen, where a photograph of the bathroom in Elias's house now appeared. A bathtub. Another agent zoomed in on the metal hatch beneath the tub. "We've never seen a setup this advanced," Agent Lorne said. "This is military-grade hardware, air filtration, reinforced steel, concealed hinges. He either has training or learned from someone who did." Elias felt cold. How long was he living there? "We can't be sure yet," Lorne replied. "But based on the evidence recovered, the warm generator, the meal that hadn't fully hardened, and most importantly, the footprints, it's likely he was there less than 24 hours before you discovered the hatch." "And the note at your motel," Devereaux added quietly, "indicates he wasn't far." Elias swallowed hard. "Why me? Why my house?" Devereaux exchanged another look with Lorne. "We suspect your house wasn't meant for sale, at least not legitimately. The listing appeared and was removed within minutes. We believe he posted it himself, intending to abandon the location and erase his trail. But he underestimated how quickly you'd find the hatch." Lorne folded her arms. "He watches people. He studies patterns. We believe he may have observed you in the house before you realized it. The sound you heard in the hallway, the shuffle, that may have been him. You startled him by opening the tub. He wasn't prepared." A chill gripped Elias. He remembered the feeling of eyes on him, the sense of a presence just beyond sight. "What does he want?" Elias asked softly. "We're trying to determine that," Devereaux answered. "But the pattern suggests long-term surveillance of multiple targets. Individuals on the missing persons board from your basement bunker were not random. They were connected by geography, behavior, or circumstance. Some disappeared, some did not. But the Watcher tracks them all." Lorne brought up another screen, showing 3 individuals with missing banners over their photos. "We found their images in your bunker. All of them vanished within a 100-mile radius of your property." Elias stared at the faces ordinary people, smiling in snapshots taken long before they disappeared. His stomach twisted. "You think he took them?" "We don't know," Lorne said. "But we know he watched them. And now he's watching you." The words hit him like a blow. Devereaux walked around the table and placed a reassuring hand on the back of Elias's chair. "For your safety, we're placing you under protective supervision until we locate him or determine the level of threat. You'll be moved to a secure site. Your house is now a federal crime scene. Our team is conducting a full excavation of the tunnel system beneath it." "Tunnels?" Elias asked. "Yes," Lorne said. "Multiple. The hidden corridor you saw wasn't the only one. We found a secondary passage behind a false wall. It extends beyond the property line." Elias tried to process the enormity of it. "How far does it go?" "We don't know yet," Devereaux admitted. "But based on soil displacement and construction patterns, it could extend several hundred yards, possibly more. The Watcher may have been using your house as a hub." A hub, the word echoed in his mind. The agents let him rest for an hour in a quiet room. A guard remained outside the door. When they returned, they escorted him to another SUV to begin the transfer to a secure location. The air outside smelled of rain. Clouds hung low and heavy, threatening a storm. They moved quickly, agents flanking him on both sides. Elias felt as though he were being carried through a world that no longer belonged to him. He was no longer a mechanic, no longer a man who bought a cheap house. He was a piece in someone else's labyrinthine design. As they approached the vehicle, something caught Elias's attention. A figure standing near the far end of the parking lot, partially hidden by a lamppost. Tall, still, almost blending with the shadows. Elias froze, heart seizing. For a moment the figure didn't move. It simply stared. He felt the gaze like a physical touch, cold and penetrating. "Agent," Elias began, pointing. But as soon as the nearest agent turned, the figure stepped back into the deeper darkness and vanished. Not walked. Vanished, as if dissolving into shadow. Devereaux immediately ordered 2 agents to sweep the area. They found nothing. No footprints, no movement, no trace. But Elias knew what he saw. The watcher had come close. Too close. They rushed him into the SUV and drove away. The tension inside the vehicle was thick. No one spoke. The agents exchanged signals, radioed nearby units, and changed routes twice to avoid any predictable patterns. When they finally arrived at the safe house, a discreet building with reinforced walls and limited windows, Elias was led inside. A bed awaited him, a small table, a lamp, nothing more. It was better than the storage room above the repair shop, but it didn't feel like a place anyone chose. It felt like a place designed for containment. He lay down but couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the board of faces, the red strings, the cold metal hatch under his bathtub, the figure in the shadows. Hours passed in restless silence. Just before dawn, Agent Lorne entered his room holding a tablet. Her face was drawn, tense. "We found something," she said. She handed him the tablet. On the screen was a photograph taken inside one of the newly discovered underground rooms connected to his house. It showed a wall with messages scrawled across it in neat, deliberate handwriting. The messages were dates, names, sketches of floor plans. But one sentence, written more boldly than the rest, stood out. "The bathtub was mine. He is mine, too." Elias felt the blood drain from his face. Lorne spoke softly. "He left this after we secured the site. He went back. He was inside that tunnel after we thought it was clear." Elias lifted his gaze to her. "What does he want with me?" "We're trying to understand," she whispered. But Elias already knew. Deep down, in a place he didn't want to acknowledge, he understood that by lifting the bathtub, he had done more than expose a hidden door. He had interrupted someone's world, someone who lived in the cracks of society, in spaces no one else saw, who observed and selected people for reasons no one understood. And now that man had shifted his attention onto him. He looked back at the sentence on the wall and felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. The watcher wasn't just nearby, he was hunting. And the hunt had only just begun. Subscribe to the channel, share this video, and check out the next stories and other videos. Thanks for watching.